So I was having a conversation with a client this morning, and she had originally come to me because she was experiencing this huge lack of clarity in her life. She didn't know what she wanted to do with her life. She didn't know who she wanted to be. She didn't know what she wanted to do with her career. She didn't even know if she wanted to be in the relationship she was currently in. And so through experimenting and learning more about this lack of clarity, what we found was when she would think about what she wanted, her mind would completely wipe her. When your mind doesn't want you to know the truth, it will hide it however it can. All right, if your mind is wiping you when you want to know something, you must be afraid of something. What would you be afraid of? And we found out that she grew up with a really strict, judgmental mother, super smart kind of person that expects perfection, essentially. And so if she underperformed and she did anything that wasn't up to her mother's standards, she was going to get love removed from her and essentially feel terrible. So basically what this created in her was this internal dynamic of kind of self-policing, where it's like, if I know who I want to be and I know what I want to do, but it's not up to the standards of my mom, then I'm going to lose love. Therefore, it's not safe to know what I want. It's not safe to know who I want to be because I'm a little fucking kid, and if I don't get love from my mom, then who am I going to get love from? And that's essentially the perspective and narrative that she's been living in. And this is all starting to sound really familiar at this point because I used to have such a huge issue with this that I would basically be narcoleptic. I was so afraid of knowing what I wanted because of all the different things that I went through that when I would think about what I wanted and I would figure it out, my brain would shut down to the point where I wanted to go to sleep. So I have a lot of familiarity and understanding of what it looks like to be afraid of having clarity on the truth. We found the part of her that was afraid of the judgment, right? The part of her that would recoil and want to withhold the truth, even from herself. And what we did was we started to create a loving relationship with it. And the idea is that this part of her was afraid to be authentic and to know what the truth is and to have clarity on these sorts of things because it was afraid of not being loved. And so if we could go in there and we could find this part and show it that there's nothing it could do that would have it not get loved, that it's going to be loved unconditionally no matter what it does for the rest of its life, suddenly knowing the truth is a little less scary. And so this is what happens to a lot of people. If you think about what you want and you can't figure it out, or your mind wipes you, or some other thing happens other than getting the answer that you're looking for, it's because some part of you doesn't want the answer. And most of the time, when that part of you doesn't want the answer, it's because it thinks that there's some consequence to having the answer that you wouldn't be able to deal with. Like for me, when I was a little kid, my dad died and I didn't save him. I was 6. And the way that a 6-year-old deals with bad things happening is by blaming themselves. So I told myself that I was a bad person for not saving my dad, so therefore anything I wanted to do was bad. So if I thought about what I wanted to do, that must be something that a bad person wanted to do, so I wasn't able to know what that was. However, when I faced that part of myself and I loved it and I let it know that there was nothing that it did wrong, there was nothing it could have done any differently because it was a little child that was dealing with insane circumstances, suddenly the judgment started to go away. That clarity could make its way into my mind because it no longer occurred as something a bad person would do. It now started to occur that something a loving, kind, good person would do. And so it started to be less scary and I could know who I wanted to be and what I wanted to do with my life. If you don't know exactly who you want to be, if you don't know exactly what kind of life you want to have, if you don't know exactly what you want to eat for dinner or what you want to do that day, it's because some part of you doesn't want you to know. So then the question then becomes, why would I want to hide the truth from myself? What reason would I have to take the things that could bring me the most happiness and satisfaction and fulfillment? What reason could I possibly have to hide those from myself? And you want to inject a little bit of compassion here, because you also want to consider, like, how scared must I have been to want to hide the most valuable things from myself? How much pain must I have been in to say, I'd rather not know what I want? Because it's probably a lot. And so you want to go into this with some compassion and understanding that you wouldn't hide these things from yourself unless you actually thought that was the best thing to do. So this part of you that's hiding this shit, it's scared. It thinks some bad thing is going to happen if you know the truth. And it's your job to figure out what that bad thing it's afraid of is and find a way to deal with it. Because there's internal needs and external needs. So when you're dealing with a part of you that's afraid of something, you have to make sure that that thing is dealt with internally and externally. The internal needs are like, okay, if the bad thing does happen, I will be here to take care of you. You don't have to fear the bad thing because I will be here to take care of you no matter what that bad thing is. That's the internal thing that lets this part of you know that it's going to be loved and cared for no matter what happens, so that it's okay for you to know what you want. And on the other side, if you actually look and think real bad things will happen, then it's just a matter of what bad things do I think will happen? How can I plan for them? How can I avoid them and make sure that they don't happen? Or how can I take care of myself if they do? So that way you'll know that on an emotional level, you're going to be loved and cared for no matter what happens. And on a practical level, you're actually going to be looking out for any bad things that you may cause or that may happen as a result of just life being what it is. And they can actually be planned for so that the part of you who is afraid no longer has anything to be afraid of on an internal or external level. And once that happens, the part of you really starts to relax. It really starts to trust you, and then you can gain instantaneous access to the truth of whatever you want to know, whether it's who do I want to be? Do I still want to be in this marriage or relationship? Or would I rather have tacos or burgers for dinner tonight? Whatever it is, you can get the clarity because you're ready to deal with the consequences so the truth doesn't scare you anymore. And the external needs are particularly important because sometimes knowing the truth does come with real-world consequences. I was coaching a guy through a divorce, and he'd been married to this woman for like 13 years. They had kids together. And so him becoming aware of the truth and becoming anchored in it meant that he had to get a divorce, and meant that he had to essentially uproot his entire family and shift the dynamics of the household, and these things that have enormous repercussions. And so in order for him to feel safe enough to accept that truth, we had to deal with the real world ramifications and make sure that he could have these conversations in a way that was productive, and make sure that he can communicate to his kids and hold himself in a way that is in integrity and care for himself, because the result of knowing that truth is enormous. And sometimes when you know the truth, you have to set boundaries, and sometimes doing the right thing means doing the hardest thing you can imagine. And so your mind a lot of times will have real good reasons to hide this shit from you, and it really needs to know that you're going to have its back no matter what happens. And so the main idea here is if you don't know exactly who you are and exactly what kind of life you want to live and exactly how to go about creating it, it's because some part of you doesn't want to know that. I learned how to market my business. I learned how to do sales. I learned how to do coaching just from listening to the parts of me that told me I couldn't do it and that told me that I shouldn't do it. And I asked them, I was like, why shouldn't I do this? Like, why shouldn't I do it this way? And they gave me their reasons, and I integrated it, and I created my own way of doing everything by listening to the parts of me that didn't want me to do it. So if you lack clarity on any of this shit, the real question is why? Like, what do I not want to deal with? What do I not think I'm prepared for? What do I think I might f up? And how do I actually address that? And when you get comfortable with those things, the truth will start to reveal itself to you, and you can start to be a living embodiment of the truth as best as you know it. And when you can be that, you'll be confident, you'll be clear, you'll be able to know exactly what you want to do each day, you'll have a sense of purpose, and your whole life will just get so much better. And I know this is a much bigger topic than I can cover in like 10 minutes or whatever on YouTube. So if you need more help with this, let me know. You can send me comments in the comment section and I will answer them, or I'll make more content about it. Or if you really want some top quality help, I made courses both around knowing what your vision is and being able to integrate it, as well as knowing what your ideal identity is. And I have little pieces in those courses for people who specifically have a trouble knowing what they want. So if you need help with this sort of shit in a more detailed type of way, I highly recommend taking the courses. However, if you just want some quick tips, put them in the comments and I'll be happy to address them. But please like, share, comment, do whatever, because like I said, I want to get this out to as many people as I possibly can. Shadow integration and all this shit can change the world, and I'm going to need your help getting it out. But I'm Chris Roscoe. I love you, and I'll see you next time.